Chris is here today from Gold Studios. They manage 130 plus creators, most of them on YouTube. And interesting enough, actually, many of them are comedians. So we're going to talk about that, but also the power of YouTube and why it's so important. So let's get started.
Yeah.
Nice. But please, like, give it like a mini intro of what you do and the company. I mean, I know you work with like 130 creators, you manage them, but just tell me, a little bit more. I'd love to hear.
Yeah, so, I'm at the Gold Studios. We have been running for about 3 years, and we are essentially a talent-led management and production company. There's two sides of the business, which, I discussed with you off air. And it's a mixture of things. It's the partnership and management side where, there's talent who come to us and say, listen, like, creatively, we're great. We need help on management regarding brand partnerships, monetizing their platform, their audience, and just trying to grow their careers and to do other things, whether that's going on TV, whether that's doing something with a podcast, etc. But brand partnerships is like the bread and butter of that side of the business. I specifically head up all commercial work for our talent. So US and UK side, as you mentioned, we rep, more than 130 creators in a mixture of different niches. I like to say that our main niche is like this comedy space and entertainment. There's a real, I think, it's a real universal kind of niche because with comedy you can do so much, and in comedy there's different kind of areas. It's skits, is it POV, is it kind of like skits but in like the teacher space, is it skits in the workplace? There's so many different avenues, but it's quite universal for brands. So that's most of our talent. But the other side of the company, which I also work on, is the production side, which is essentially taking some of our content creators that we represent, turning them into long form creators, which, I'm sure you've talked to people who manage talent and maybe talk to talent themselves. It's a hard job. Like, look, YouTube is a full-time job. And some of these creators who don't know where to start or want to do it and don't have the resources, we help with that process of everything from the script writing, creating the ideas. We have a whole writer's room, which basically has all these writers that we brief and they write the scripts for our talent. We then help with the editing process, filming, and, we help them launch their channels and kind of build upon that channel, the viewership. And my part is getting commercial work on those. Because if we're growing an audience and there's kind of an audience to tap into for a brand, whether that's, you could be anywhere, it could be retail, you could be service company, like a law firm, some people are getting in touch about, and putting ads on those, usually mid-roll. So that's part of the company as well. We do a host of things, book deals, create apps and products. But there's a whole mixture, but that's kind of like the top line of what we do.
Nice. That it's more than just selling like an Instagram story for a week. It's a lot more around it.
Yeah, exactly. I think we've got a very American model in terms of we have agents and management. Especially in entertainment and Hollywood, I know from back in the day watching TV shows like Entourage and things, there's the agent who's getting the commercial work and the managers who are really kind of doing like the logistics and making it happen smoothly as possible. I'm more like someone who's getting the commercial work and getting people paid and getting the right opportunities. So that's really my role in the team that I'm building out here. But, we've grown quite a large company in 3 years, done some exciting things. So a lot of growth, but it's all good fun. Love it.
Nice. And I mentioned this earlier when we talked. I'm curious to hear, you now have 130 creators, which is super cool. It's a lot. Like, how do you pick them out? Like, what do you look at when you, because I'm guessing it's not like you letting any creator enter your talent management world. But what do you look at, and how do you determine if this is someone that you guys want to represent, and also will hopefully, generate a lot of profit margin, everything for brands and you guys?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's changed over time because of what brands in the commercial and that industry is looking for. Just to summarize, like 2 years ago when TikTok was blowing up, we're all in COVID and people were becoming famous like that, which is amazing. It was all about sort of like how many followers you had, because people gained millions of followers. And, back then we were looking at those really heavily. Then over time, talking to brands and even the agencies who represent several of these brands, understanding like, what are they actually looking for? And over time, we realized is that viewership is really important, which makes sense. So instead of just looking for content creators who had 10 million followers, we were like, okay, this file got 10 million followers, but like, how's the viewership over a long period of time? And if it was very sparse, then we'd say, is there something that's valuable for a brand and how if we could actually help them? Or is it better to go to a creator who has, I don't know, 2 million, 5 million followers, but is getting a good, consistent average viewership, within like the sort of 400, 500, 600K viewership, and getting that consistently, and the sparsity was quite low. So we were looking at that. And now over time, I think, and I know you want to delve into a bit of this called length and depth thing that I've been discussing with yourself and other people, is that, engagement rates come into that. But it's about what we're getting return of our talent. Now, it's tough to gauge that. There's some talent where we can talk to them and say they've worked with a brand and they know they've been working regularly with them, and they've been told they've been getting data of how many sales they're doing with a brand, or about clicks on a link, which is data we're always trying to get. But that's the one thing we're looking at more, is about the engagement. But I think the viewership nowadays is the essential thing. Is that the big question is, would you rather have someone who was, I don't know, 1 million followers or less, or some of the talent we have 800K or 400K followers, where their viewership's always in that range of like the same as their followership or higher. So it's about that. But also the other thing is like, do they actually entertain us? Like, I want to be providing space for ads to advertise on creators that I really like and believe in, and we like resonate with and have good fun with. So there's a big conversation there. And also, like, there's some talent who reach out to us and say, Chris, we really want to be repped by you, or like, we want the Gold Studios to rep me, like, can you help? And there's some where, we say to them at the minute, it doesn't make sense for them because they can do it on their own at the minute, but over time they might need that support. So there's like different factors like that. But I would say nowadays viewership engagement is the key thing. But we're always looking for like, what's that next thing a brand or like the industry is focusing on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can see if you're a YouTuber and you're getting more views than actual followers, you're probably doing some kind of extra value in your content that YouTube loves and want to push out even more. But when it comes to, so you look at those type of numbers, but why have you guys jumped into this comedy, category? Like, and how could that, like, that's unique, I feel.
I think it's interesting, the likes of Matt Rife and people who have blown up
TikTok
on social, which I think is great because they're using, these people, like, especially stand up, they are going out and they are doing their comedy gigs every single week. Like, we've been learning the comedy space more and more. I realize how much work these people put in if they want to do stand up. It is hard, whilst they're also maybe doing another job. Really, really challenging kind of industry to go in. So these people who are like Matt, who are putting their content out there on social and using that to drag in new audiences, especially on TikTok and other platforms, you can see what towns or what cities they're really popular in, which is really good information for a comedian to understand where I should be going, or if I should be in a show in Texas, because I know a lot of percentage of my audience is there. That's a really good metric to use. But that's really stand-up focused, but we really like that concept of the stand-up people are using social, which is great, which means that they can do their stand-up normally, but if they're putting their stand-up on social and also doing maybe skit comedy, some other type of comedy on their social, that is another revenue stream to help them maybe provide some stability, because we know it's tough being a comedian, and also other opportunities, whether that's working with a brand on a multi-month deal, whether that's maybe if they want to launch a YouTube, being a comedian doing stand-up, but also doing a YouTube series and having that revenue come in there, and also building an audience which can then translate to the stage, and then vice versa. So you have that element, which I don't believe there's no agency who's like specializing in that and helping read that area. And I think I touched on it before about how universal comedy is. There's different creators have different types of comedy. Maybe some that, touch the boundaries a little bit. Some are very family friendly. Some are really relatable. It's like about the office space. Tyler Regan's a great example we have, who's got such consistent viewership. It's always about like the Karen at work, or like funny things that happen in the office space. Like everyone relates to that, and it is funny. So that's a universal thing. It could be an AI app that works with him. It could be we had Gel Blaster, which is like the funny toy guns that worked with him. There's a mixture. Like you can really be universal. So that's why we also want to tap into that, because we have such a wide network of brands, whether that's AI, whether that's a service company, whether that's actual retail, and we can provide all those to them. So that's why we've been really focusing on that. It's worked really well. And, you know, we've been delving into other things like doing comedy bookings. There's one guy called Comedic Cody who we brought a lot of commercial work for, and he needed help with comedic bookings for comedy shows, and we're really doing that for him as well. But at the same time, bringing him commercial work for his social, whilst also trying to get him comedy gigs to then obviously do on the stage. So, and he can obviously sell or push the tickets out by doing it on platforms like Instagram and TikTok. So it's a two-way thing, but I think it's an interesting space to see how it grows for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's been blowing really. Like, I've been seeing too many now comedy. Like, I don't even know who they are, but they have like so many views on TikTok and YouTube. And it makes sense. Like, of course, they should have like a agency or agent and people that, you know, take care of them and help them grow. So I think it's smart to have that, you know, niche that you guys are now doing. I mean, you see a lot of gamers, Pokemon, all those type of niches, and they have their agents. This is another niche.
I think it's like music, right? If I was I'm not a music expert. I love the music space. I wish we could one day have an area that did that. But like, there's music agents and A&R reps who are just going through TikTok and Instagram and find the next big thing, right? But the thing about that is the accessibility of making content is much more easier. Great, because we could all start singing on Instagram and pop off. We all could technically, but like, accessibility is easier, but it means it gets harder to find, you know, the actual big talent in there. So there's pros and cons, obviously, of how easy it's blown up, but it's about finding the kind of like star within that big pool. But that pool's bigger, which means there's more chance of finding the star.
Yeah. Something I've been thinking about now lately, also when I've talked with more and more people, we work with a lot of D2C brands, you know, classic consumer brands, and when they're running a lot of influence marketing campaigns, they can see audience fatigue, like they've been pushing too much frequency, and many of them like try to find new channels, new niches to kind of, obviously to get new customers. If you're like just a classic D2C brand, fashion, beauty, or whatever, like how could they get a new audience, new customers from your comedy niche? Like how would that collaboration look like? Because I'm just thinking, like, if they, you know, do a lot of jokes and on the scene, like where does it come in? Like where does the message of if I'm a brand and I want to promote through you guys, like how could that look like basically? And what success have you seen?
That's a great point. I think, you know, fashion's a good example. Like, and there's those other brands who would tap into some of our creative audiences, and when I would tell about the talent about, like, one big one's like this law firm who we also work with some of our talent. So some of the talent we've got said, like, why would they want to work with me? It's a legal firm. Right? It doesn't make any sense. And I say, I get that, but they've been exhausted their other audience of maybe people who are older, people in certain spaces that are trying to tap into something else, try and get more awareness, have another touch point with a potential customer base. And it has to depend on who the brand is and who the talent is. I like to say that we're very big on collaborating with our talent to try and find a creative way to make it work, which benefits the talent, obviously, because then they create their content they really like, but more for the brand as well, because I understand, and our team really understand, that you're investing in a talent for some creative. If our content creators are creative, and we understand they're buying into that, so we have to help with that process, ensure we give them the best possible content piece that delivers what they're looking for. Usually if it's TikTok, it's about awareness, isn't it? They want to get as many people watching it. So there's that balance of the brand understanding, trust us as the creator and the creators team, as well as the creator understanding that some of the brands have certain things that have to be said. So, you know, we did things like, not fashion, but like Tyler Regan with the Gel Blaster one. We had a creative where it was like, it's going to be like team building in the office place, and they're going to go not do paintballing, but do something similar. And like, that's going to really work because one, it's a content series that's ongoing. Two, it's subtly being put into the middle of the video, which should keep the retention there. And this is kind of like what it looked like on other videos. This is what the script would look like with the Gel Blaster incorporated. Like, that's just an example of it. It's not like we're just going to make a random script. There's going to be nothing to do with Tyler's content. We're going to try and incorporate it in almost like the series that's going on. But that's just one very tailored example. There's some, obviously, we've done work with Shein a few times, kind of big client that just come regularly. The Shein strategy is just doing these clothing hauls that are very, very simple. They don't want to complicate it. It's work for them. They want to keep it. So we have to respect that. It really depends on how open the brand is. That's why my conversations, it can be, they say, listen, Chris, what example videos are we looking at here? And I can almost not decide the creative, but suggest what it would look like. So when I even go to the talent, I can say it's going to have to look like something like these videos you've done already. Let's try and mix up and add the brand or service, etc. in it. So it has to be dependent on the brand and what they're looking for and the talent. But it's done in a creative, bespoke way because of what the talent's creative is.
Yeah, it must be. I can just imagine if a comedian would sell it like an ad, similar to just our lifestyle influencer, because that can sometimes work because they're just showing the lifestyle and it could work, but it would be, I think it would be a little bit weird if a comedian where you only see him or her like doing jokes and all that, and then from nowhere talking about like about the product or something.
Another good example is a girl called Laura Bianca, who's in the UK. She is big car girl, like she's got her own car, she's like the mechanics of it, really cool. Like she talked about her journey of that, but it's also done in like a comedic fun way, like it's a bit playful. And Shein with her saw results early doors. I've been working with Shein and Laura for 2 years, like doing deals every single campaign, every month, every 2 months. And instead of doing just clothing hauls, which they did originally, we said, let's try and do something with, it's like her saying she's doing something with her car anyway, but like it's playfully in there. And we've been doing that since, and it's been working really well. Like on an ad, getting like 300-400K views organically with no kind of paid media behind it. Like, nice, it's quite good. Some are 160, some are 300, but like it's a good range for what they're paying as well. But that's just an example of like it stuck to it originally what they thought would work. It's Shein's strategy as a whole, and then it was like, okay, you trust us with this. I think it could do something with Laura, which is bespoke in this certain way, and that's what she's been doing since. So, as I said, it has to depend obviously on the talent, but it can evolve as well. Is the key thing.
Yeah. It's. I guess that's also why you guys exist, to be the middleman and help them to do a little bit more riskier campaign, not to the classic ones that may be done with other influencers, and really make sure that it fits kind of your creators. We talked about the depth of audience. Can you explain that? What do you mean with that?
Yeah, so I remember telling you about it. I've telling a lot of people about it. It's interesting hearing their thoughts. I think I'm someone who started in the industry like three years ago. And it's all about sort of views, followers, which are like in the millions. They don't care about views, and that's about like maximum average views. And then it became, well, how sparse are these average views? Like, is he getting 2 million views and he's getting like 10K views? Like the sparsity is very big. And after talking to more and more brands, I've realized, and just industry stuff and reading, brands need to understand they can't just shove as much money as they can to a talent and just expect viewership in return. So that's why then it became about, okay, let's look at how big these average views are and the sparsity between them to narrow them. The narrower they are, the more chance the brand understands what they're getting. And then it became like, TikTok's great for getting views and getting brand awareness, but you can do that so much. But as a brand, especially if you're trying to sell a product and you want to drive it to a link in bio, like how many people are going to that link in bio? How many people are clicking on that giveaway thing that's going on? So I've thought about length as audience of how many people are following the views, but also like the depth of like, out of that 300K who watched that video, how much of that 300K is really actually going to that brand's website or really buying into that giveaway or even just commenting about the brand and being engaged there. So I kind of like kept talking about it with other people. I've seen other industry leaders talk about it as well. And then I was talking to some friends about it, and I told you about this game, which I think, by the way, everyone should do, is, YouTube and TikTok are very different things. And I remember talking to a friend who said, oh, I know this YouTuber, I've seen he's been doing this. I think it was Bazinga, who's part of Sidemen, who said, oh, he's made a new house, and he's now with Gymshark, he's made his own gym. Amazing. And, they're his girlfriend and the dogs, or whatever, they know everything about them. And I said, that's interesting. But I said, like, well, who do you watch on TikTok? And these mates were like, oh, watch this guy who does farming, or I watch this person who does this really funny thing. He goes to random people and gives them a note, or he does this stuff. But they didn't know their names. So over time, I started going to, like, when I had, like, friends for drinks and just chatting, asking about the world I work in. And I said, they didn't understand what I meant by the difference between a TikToker and a YouTuber, or the depth of audience. They're like, what are you talking about? So the simple game I played was name me 5 TikTok people. And the same thing would happen. Oh, that guy who does this girl who does that. Oh, that's a really funny guy. There's this cooking stuff. It's really like satisfying videos of him cooking this pastry stuff, and it looks nice. And I'm like, great, but like, what are their names? And they'll be like, I don't know. And then I'd say, name me 5 YouTubers. What will you watch, like, on YouTube? And they'd be like, oh yeah, maybe it's like all the Sidemen guys, KSI, Bazinga, as I mentioned. Oh, I watch I watch a guy called Spencer FC, who now has his own football team called #United. So like, I know his wife's name. I know he's got a kid. I know he's got a dog. I know he lives in Essex. He's from there. I know the team. I could tell you everything about him. And I could do that 5-10 times over, and all my mates had the same thing. And I said, that is like the answer. That's the concept there. You can't name the 5 TikTokers, but you could name me 5 YouTubers like that. And I think the argument, which I think you agreed with, is spending 10 minutes or 15 minutes a week with someone every single week for a year, so 52 weeks, it's a lot of time. When you're subscribed to them, or like you are actually going out to go watch them, compared to a TikToker who, I'm not saying they're not important, they are vital, and they do have an audience, but the depth is, I think, very different to, like, say, a YouTube audience. So that's kind of like the game I play. I don't know if you used it, but that's
I love it.
I suggest it to everyone.
I think many out there can relate to that. And it doesn't mean that TikTok is not relevant. It's more like it's harder to build trust with 3 seconds, and then you're just swiping, and you don't really follow. I wouldn't say people really follow other TikTokers sometimes. It's just that they get that content recommended because you watch it so much. Compared to like YouTube, you truly follow someone. We're always watching, coming back. You know the exact time or the exact day when the new video will come out. But how do you know if it must be YouTubers out there that still do, high quality, but they don't build trust? Like, how can you determine on a YouTuber if they really have that true audience? I mean, I know you mentioned average views and all that, but if you can just skip all like average views and those kind of metrics, like, how do you even know? Like, it must be hard. And how do you know to match the right creator with certain brand too? So it's
I mean, regarding the YouTube side, the one thing I've been, I said we've launched some YouTube channels. Tucker, who's Big Tug, did short form stuff with him. Now do long form as well. Loic, we've done Michael Spicer, a few other people. There's a whole list. But Tucker's a good example where I've been selling ad space on his page, doing well with the viewership is consistent. But the big thing I've been looking at recently is looking at the percentage of the viewership in, let's say, the month. What percentage is subscribers and what isn't? Now, that tells you a lot, doesn't it? If, let's say, a YouTuber was getting all these views on their long form, I'm talking about, and it was majority of it being non-subscribers, then I'm like, okay, maybe they've got an audience, but it's not as powerful. Let's say who's got like 70% of all their views are subscribers. I think that's quite a powerful thing to know, because it means those are the same people watching the video. I haven't actually looked at the data on TikTok, let's say, with a Tucker or someone, and compared them from the YouTube numbers to the TikTok. But I'll be interested to see how many of the followers on TikTok are the recurring views in that month. Which one will be more? from what I believe the YouTube side will be higher, but I'm going to check the short form stuff. But that was the interesting item I'm looking at, because I'm giving a brand more confidence, saying, listen, okay, his follower is this number, his views are this as well. But on that viewership, the same people coming back who trust him and watch him 10 minutes every Saturday is this percentage. People who actually want to go watch him, who are planned to. I think that's quite a good number to, and then a factor to look at. And we've seen returns, Tucker's did a one video deal with a brand. We've now got him a 4 video deal with them. He's doing that across all the way till March. He's did a couple of video brand deals with one brand who's now extended that as well. Like, it may get tested out on one video, but then if it does work and it makes sense to the brand, of course we extend that partnership. But that's an interesting thing I'm going to keep watching out for, is, let's say, what happens if that number keeps going down? Then I'm like, okay, maybe his depth isn't there. But from what I'm seeing, it's going up, which means that his audience is following him, but also the audience that are watching his videos in that month are actually returning. That's, I think, a very important metric to look at.
Is it, would you say did you just say 70%, or is that actually the number?
I can't say the numbers, but like, I've seen some other talent before, like, we don't manage now, but like, we used to, but like, it could be like 60, 70%, it could be higher, depending. But compared to a TikTok, and by the way, it's how consistent the viewership is. If you look at Tucker's viewership, it's always going up, but it's never up and down, right. Which is an interesting thing, because then you got a better idea of what you're getting. And also on YouTube deals, you get like guaranteed views that are part of the deals as well, which gives some of the brands more safety. But to answer your question about tailoring a brand to the talent, if that's on YouTube, I'll be honest with you, like, it depends what the brand wants. Like, if a legal firm wants to work with a guy who's completely not in a legal space to try and tap into an audience that the demographic makes sense, there's a depth of audience, and the age range also makes sense, of course, fine, if that's what they want to do. That's a conversation I always have with them. They come in, a brand comes in and says, because we want to work with YouTube talent, my job is not to go, these are all the 10 people, which one do you want? My job is to go, well, what do you need? Like, what are we trying to do here? We try to tap into a younger audience. We try to tap into a certain kind of gender demographic, a country, etc. That's where those conversations and discussions come in. That's why we're in place, because the likes of Tucker or Loic or Mark Ryan, who we rep, they're like, I just want to make unreal videos and build my audience, not ask questions about analytics and data and gender splits and etc. That's where we come in.
Yeah, for sure. But regarding just, true audience, consistency in the views and all that, I think those metrics are super, super interesting. Another thing I've seen more and more, and I've heard also from other experts and brands, is if they have a YouTube audience of, let's say, I don't know, 50K followers or even 500K subscribers, if they have 100K or like 50% of them are on their Instagram and on their TikTok, you can kind of understand, because if they're only on YouTube, like, that's kind of their main channel. Looking at the other channels, see how many followers they have there, then you kind of know the true audience. Because if you love them on YouTube and you randomly see them a few times, but if you really love them, you probably also want to follow them on all different channels they have.
For sure. I think, just to one thing, I'm a person, I've said this to a few people recently, I'm a person I'm all about and, not or. It's not length or depth. I mean, ideally, I want someone who's going to have millions and millions of views and it's the same people coming back. Of course, we all want that. But that's tough. If it was that easy, we'd all be doing it. Like, it's as simple as that. But I think as you said, it's looking at the other channels as well. The best thing I think is, and I've been talking to some brands who are discussing whether they want to do it or not, and they've asked for it, and we're kind of discussing it, is doing a YouTube deal that incorporates having a YouTube short bit of content, which is copped into vertical, and then taking it onto TikTok and Instagram and shorts to try and drive traffic to the YouTube channel. Because that obviously is utilizing, let's say, Tucker, who's got very, very strong views on TikTok, maybe new followers or new viewership, driving it to a YouTube channel. And how they drive it it has to be done in a creative way, not go to my YouTube channel, it's amazing. It has to be done in a creative way, but trying to utilize their followings and their engagement on those platforms to the place which is their long form, which is where the main content is. That one helps the brand get more eyeballs on it and hopefully new audiences, as well as the talent getting more audiences on their channel as well, which obviously grows. So I've been looking at doing that because it utilizes all their platforms instead of just relying on one. But it's something that I'm in discussions with.
But that's smart, I think, and it's a win-win. Like if the creator grows based on that, it's good for you guys, it's good for the creator, but obviously also for the brands. I think that's smart. And I was also thinking more of the perspective, if you're a brand and you evaluate the YouTuber or any channel, just look at their other like secondary, third channels and just see how many followers they have, just to get an understanding of the true audience. I saw one TikToker, a huge, like doing a lot of fashion deals. She had like 1 or 2 million followers on TikTok. But then on Instagram, she had 200K followers, but she's not even posting. She has like 6 pictures and no stories, but still people just want to go in and follow her on Instagram when nothing is happening there. I think that's pretty interesting. And I know she's converting very, very like crazy good. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah. I think the depth thing's an interesting thing. I think there was a couple of people who went on Love Island, TV show here in the UK a few years ago, and I remember a brand, I think, invested into one of the talent, which is great, amazing, and they find out that over like 4 or 5 months later, I know it was all over the news, it was, well, whether this is true or not, this is what I read and heard, but you know, their audience actually was one from a different country, which didn't make sense of the brand, or else also inactive. And that makes you think, okay, because the follower number is 2 million, like, what am I getting out of that 2 million? Yeah. And I think after hearing that, I think that's what also triggered me to go, that's interesting. Let's just keep that in mind, making sure it's like that. It's the conversation of quality over quantity.
Yeah.
Of course, both is great, but it's if it said that easy, we'd all be doing it, and we all be on YouTube making some fun content.
Yeah, for sure. I think just if you just giving your audience value, like either if it's entertainment or giving them tips and tricks, whatever the niche it is, and you really give value and people coming back, then you probably have something that is working, and that usually is trust, and then any brand deal hopefully will work. But cool. So just a final question, like what would you say is the trend or focus for this year when it comes to the whole creator space? Any trends or anything you would like to share?
Yeah, it's funny enough, I'm putting a post out on LinkedIn probably this week or next week. And it's some of the things I'm going to be watching out for. I think obviously the first one was about how I think brands are going to be important for brands. As simple as that. I think that's not going away. It's only going to develop over time. So that's definitely going to happen. I think the other thing is, I think for creators, from the creator side and the creative side, I'm not like someone who can create ideas like that. That's not my expertise. However, I do have this conversation with talent, ones we rep, and also ones that I just talk to and just want to get myself out there, is, you know, talent have to evolve. I've been seeing some talent doing the same thing for maybe like 3 years, and then they suddenly go, my viewership's down, I'm not doing what I used to, maybe not getting the opportunities I used to. And I think talent needs to realize, you know, you can't be doing the same thing over and over again. Like a business, we're always evolving. Like, we were just doing management in just a broad everything. Now we're doing production, now we're doing YouTube, and now we only launched in the US, I don't know, in 2022, like not very long ago. And that's one of our big revenue drivers for sure. So I think that evolving my content, what else can I do? And I have a few things I've told talent to do. So that's one of the things as well. I think other platforms getting into play. I think there was all this weird thing about Lemonade. When Lemonade, the app, I don't know if you know about it, came out when TikTok was getting so-called banned. And then, and died off a cliff. I've been hearing some rumors, chatting about with people that Lemonade are trying to get some sort of work with talent, try and push people on that platform. Be Real, I think, has just endorsed some celebrities to go on their platform. Like, what does that do for talent? Like, talent, but also our brands and opportunities. I can imagine in creative ways brands working with whether it's celebs first and then content creators on how to drive people to be real, but also drive to a location to go and buy a product. So I think that's an interesting one. And regarding platforms as well, I think live streaming, I think I've been seeing more of these experts in marketing in the world talking about live streaming, something that will help with the depth of audience. I think people are really intrigued about when they're even just doing something else, having someone they know be on live. I remember being at university and people just watching, like they were doing uni work or they were just eating dinner, just watching people play games, live streaming all day. So I was like, that's incredible to me. Like they just would do that all day. And there's even some of these experts, I think Gary Vee's a big one where he's now just live streaming all day, every day, but he's putting himself on mute and he's just chatting to people all the time. But like, I can see why he does it because people are engaged with him every single day. That's building depth on a literally a minute, second basis. So that's interesting. With also the involvement of TikTok Shop, which was first launched in the UK 2 years ago. We helped with that. I think there's rumors they might be doing live streaming studios again in the States. Don't know 100%, but there's potential. But they did that in the UK and trying to push that live shopping experience forward. As I said, length and depth of audience, I think just understanding what that talent's audience is and what they can provide. I've done repeat work and asking with brands and asking the question, what did you get out of the last deal with this talent? Why are we doing a longer term deal? Why are you open to it more? And they're saying we got X amount of clicks on the giveaway thing. And, you know, it's really resonating with their audience from what we can see. And they asked about my thoughts on the talent side and they say, yeah, and it aligns. And I'm doing repeat bigger work with them. So I think depth is definitely there. But those are like the things I'm looking for. It might change. Things might come up. It's only fair, like who knows? But yeah. I don't know what your thoughts are on any of those. If anything jumps out to you there, or you disagree with anything, please.
No, I love it. I think live shopping will be interesting to follow. I think it has got a few chances already the past 2 years with different type of platforms. I think TikTok has struggled a little bit to getting that working in the UK. What I've heard, so it's not really. But let's see if that works. I think just the live streaming concept that you just mentioned, maybe not live shopping, but just live streaming.
I agree. Well, what's interesting with the live streaming, what's interesting with that though, is you could do live streaming and it doesn't have to be a TikTok. So it doesn't have to be like shopping every single minute. But imagine if I was doing live streaming, I was a gamer or I was someone doing fashion, just talk about it. And then they drop in saying, I'm Ralph Lauren, I've got this coat, and you can actually buy it right now, guys, like quickly on this discount, and then you move on to your normal thing. That is a possibility. Yeah. I mean, I'm half Indonesian. My mum is from Indonesia. When she told me about TikTok Shop had to pull out of Indonesia because the government banned it due to merchant problems, and they're basically taking money away from the local economy, like the local shops and retail. And then TikTok decided to say, we'll pay you $1.5 billion to have TikTok Shop running. That's not normal. And that they wouldn't be doing that if they didn't believe it was a working product. I get that's in Asia, but there's something going on there. I think they're trying to change consumer behavior in the Western world. Yeah. It takes time. People start buying. I think the classic thing is people say it usually takes eight touch points to then start looking or potentially buying something, depending on what stages. There's rumors saying it's 1 to 50 touch points, but TikTok Shop will be everywhere. Amazon Shop will be everywhere. Retail online will be everywhere. Like the content, etc. I believe one day it takes you one time to buy something on TikTok Shop or some sort of live stream platform, and then you'll end up doing it over and over again.
Yeah, for sure. And I also think it's interesting. Just the last point you mentioned, or the first point you mentioned, just you always need to change your content, like whatever it is. You always need to be creative, come up with new ideas, and that's the hard part. But you always need to change. And I think it totally makes sense because if you just look at the music industry, it's not like you could push the same Beyonce song that she released 10 years ago and just tweak it and then do the release again this year. They really need to change. And I think that happens, like you just said, that will happen or is happening for YouTubers, creators, Instagram, everything. You need to change a little bit to kind of keep the interest out there so you don't lose your audience.
The one very trendy example would be, and a lot of people may like this, but I don't know if you're a Swiftie fan or a Taylor Swift fan. I like her music. I don't mind it. But like, she was the country girl. She then became kind of this hard, like kind of like rebel kind of type. Then it was sort of like a bit mysterious, don't really know. And then now she's like what she is now. Like there's a reason. There's a reason why things change. Businesses change. I have this method called the ABC method for talent, where A is your main content, B is always saying you're working on and testing, C is your backup ones that come in and it kind of shifts across. But yeah, I think you have to always keep evolving. You can't do the same stuff all the time.
Yeah. But great, Chris. This was fun. Yeah,
amazing.
Again, every call I have, I learn so much.
That's good. I hope I gave my energy. I'm quite energetic, and people say like a lot of energy goes through the screen, or it's like a punch in the face. It's not on purpose, but like that's just the way I am.
Well, I love it. That's why we have video too, so people can feel it. But yeah, thanks for joining and sharing all your insights.
Amazing. It's been a pleasure.